Board games have been around forever, thousands of years. We had shogi, we had, I think, some sort of Viking chess and regular chess and checkers, backgammon, all kinds of games. Thousands of years. At first, they were made out of different materials. They used to be big and they were small. And then you had games like the Landlord's Game or Monopoly, right? So board games were more commercialized. Milton Bradley. They started to come into the whole, like into play like from the 19th to the 20th century. At that time, carnival games would evolve into penny arcade machines, and then we had bagatelle and pinball. And pinball was great. You go to the arcades. So your choices were playing board games or card games at home. And cards, with my card set here, my playing cards here, aces, clubs, diamonds, hearts, those even more accessible. Games became more accessible. Cards were easier to deal with than putting up a board and setting up pieces. But cards and board games and penny arcade machines and pinball, they gave way to video games, video game mascot characters, whether it was Space Invaders or Pac-Man or Mario. And when I was a kid, or when I was a baby, toddler, it was the fight between Intellivision, Magnavox Odyssey, and Fairchild Channel F, and the Commodore ZX Spectrum, but the Atari was the one that overrode everything. And once Nintendo came around, okay, you got here's my Nintendo, all my old Nintendo games. Then it was like Nintendo toppled Atari, and Atari kind of suffered after that. They came back with their Jaguar, right? But then there was a fight between Nintendo and Sega. Sega had some old, systems. They started out as a slot machine company. Then they had that helicopter game with the helicopter goes back and forth on different spots, and so mechanical arcade games to Magic Lantern light up games, and then video games, right? So Sega and Nintendo would go at it until Sony entered the ring. And then Microsoft with the Xbox. So PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo. And when I was going through high school, college, actually more early college, late college, Sega left the battleground with the Dreamcast. So the Dreamcast was its exit. And so you had Nintendo, you had Xbox, and you had Sony PlayStation. And then there was PC. And for a long, long time, it has been this way, but things have changed. And I do believe part of that is the Steam Deck. All hail the Steam Deck. So the Steam Deck really made a difference. It toppled the board games, it toppled the pinball and the old school, and it keeps on growing. The 2026 gaming market will be a transitional year. With Valve's newly announced Steam ecosystem, Steam Machine, Steam Frame VR headset, and Steam controller, entering as a cohesive, affordable, PC-centric lineup. These devices, all launching in early 2026, emphasize the SteamOS integration, modability, and seamless cross-device play, positioning them as strong contenders for living room and portable gaming. However, they'll face stiff competition from Microsoft's next Xbox for 2026 as a premium PC hybrid, Sony's PS6, likely 2027, 2028. That's state of play, I'll tell you. Nintendo Switch 2 already launched in mid-2025, and the broader PC market, which will see major upgrades like DDR6 RAM, PCIe 5.0 standards, and next-gen GPUs, NVIDIA RTX series, or I'm not even sure what that is, AMD RDNA 5. Valve's hardware isn't a direct console killer, but excels in value. Library access over 100,000 Steam titles and ecosystem flexibility. Pricing remains unannounced, but Valve's history, Steam Deck at $399, I think that would be for the, the 256 model? Probably the 256 model. So $399 suggests competitive entry points around $400 to $600 for the Steam Machine bundle. Adoption will hinge on developer support and avoiding the original Steam Machine's 2015 pitfalls. Yeah, poor Linux optimization based on leaks, rumors, and industry trends. I mean, you don't want the Ouya to be your competitor, right? Ouya 2, right? Industry trends. Here's how they stack up. Key specs. Steam Machine will have AMD Zen 4, 4.6C 12T, 4.8 gigahertz RDNA 3, 28 CUs. RAM storage is 16 gigabytes DDR5, 8 gigabytes DDR6 RAM, 512 gigabytes over 2 terabytes SSD plus micro SD. That's good. Yeah, 2 terabytes. That may not seem like a lot. It all depends on what kind of games. So what I saw in a video was that it was 6 Steam Decks in one machine, or they call it the Gabe Cube. So 4K 60 frames per second with FSR and ray tracing, Steam OS, streams to deck frame. Okay, yeah, you can. So your Steam Deck can also be like the PlayStation whatever it is, the Portal. It can double as that. 400 to 600 estimated price. Release window early 2026. Steam Frame, which is the VR. It has 60 gigabyte LPDDR5 expendable storage, wireless standalone VR, eye track foveated rendering. The thing looks pretty light. This is going to be a $500 to $700 machine. So if you want to do VR, it's I think as Vinesauce had said, what is the market going to be like for VR? And you don't want to do VR. I don't know if Valve is going to have their own sort of their own like direct, but they should. Why not? It wouldn't hurt. Steam controller is going to have magnetic thumbsticks, haptics, gyros, Bluetooth peripheral, 60 to 80 bucks, early 2026. That's not too bad. That's the one controller. So it's a very expensive thing, but the value is there. Here's the next Xbox, okay? The Sexbox. AMD Zen 5 8-core set, RDNA 5 GPU, 32 gigabyte GDDR6, 2 terabyte SSD. Okay. I don't know, it doesn't say micro SD accessibility. PC hybrid, base free online multiplayer. This one looks like a sorry state of affairs, doesn't it? PS6. Now, Tyrone Magnus said that not enough games have come out for the PS5 to warrant putting out the PS6 in 2 years. So by around this time, 2 years, the PS6 is supposed to come out. I think a few more titles, AAA titles for the PS5 exclusives. Now, here's the thing though. And I agree too, because if you go back to your Steam Deck, you will notice games like Ratchet and Clank. You will notice games like Sekiro. You'll notice games like God of War 4. You'll notice games like Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Miles Morales. You will notice Sony PlayStation exclusive games getting onto the Steam Deck. Whether they work perfectly on the Steam Deck is a whole other matter, but you know I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try if you are willing to try. So, there are exclusives and there are timed exclusives. What I think is going to end up happening is since the PlayStation is lousy with the Vita, and I kind of think after the PS Vita closed out, I think Sony was cursed forever by while selling out PS5s, but always having not enough for everyone else, selling out too quickly and only doing better with the PS4 sales. And by the way, there are still games being made for PS4 in 2025, as you saw in the Japanese Sony State of Play. So we got 36 gigabyte, 2 terabyte SSD. Okay. But I like the micro. Now, here's the thing. You will not get micro SD adapter. You have to get adapters later. Because even if there is any kind of data cards, right? Data cards, what is it? Memory cards. You're going to have PlayStation, Sony memory cards for this system. You will not have micro SD cards. I fucking doubt it. Nintendo of all things, at least they're not region locked. Let's get us to Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, this is least powerful. 12 gigabytes LPDDR5, 256 gigabyte plus micro SD. Will a 2 terabyte card break the Nintendo Switch 2? Somebody will answer that. Hybrid portable TV, of course, that doesn't hurt it. That makes it better. But I think that as far as while it's patented and everything, I think Steam is caught up. I think they're trying to do even better. $400 base, June 2025 it came out. High-end gaming PC, well, it has all kinds of shit going on. 2 to 4 terabytes, and $1,500 to $3,000. You could probably build your own PC if you're fucking lucky. No, Steam hardware specs from Valve's announcement. Graphics and power. Steam Machine's RDNA 3 setup targets PS5, Xbox Series X parity. It outperforms Switch 2 portables focus, but tagging next Xbox PS6 rumored 30 plus teraflops for native 8K ray tracing. Yeah, that 8K is not going anywhere. Steam Frame's mobile Snapdragon shines for VR Quest. Portability versus versatility. Steam Machine plus Deck Frame ecosystem beats stationary consoles. Switch 2 dominates the handheld, but Steam's modability and library dwarf Nintendo's exclusives. Now remember, you're paying hundreds of dollars for a Steam Deck at the least, if not a Steam Machine. Now they had those Steam Machines broke down all the time back then. This is, they had like various colors and shapes. You need one box. You could have that one box in different colors, but you have that one box, and it does what it's supposed to do. Okay. Essentially, the Steam Machine is like the Cybertruck. It's like, okay, it broke down. Now you got to make a better one. They're really doing stuff, aren't they? This is it. This is your last video game console. I'll have my final thoughts after this. Ecosystem and software, Valve's Edge, and also too, you have, not only do you have a expensive deck, but you also have a library of games from 20 years ago. As far back as the 90s to 2000s, okay? And all those games are cheap. You can get those games on sale right fucking now. You go to the Steam store, whether you're on your Steam Deck or your PC with the Steam Machine, and you can get your old games in your library, and you can get your games that are from the past and from. So let's say you get a new PC, you log into your Steam, you get your games downloaded again, and you can get more games on sale. If you had Nintendo or Xbox or Sony, you'd be fucked. You have to like hurry and download everything before they close the store for the new store and the new stuff. They closed up YouTube on the Wii U. How about that? Ecosystem and software. Valve's Edge is the massive Steam library. Proton compatibility, 90% plus Windows games run on Steam OS. No paywall for multiplayer. That's right. Unlike PS Plus. Next, Xbox integrates Game Pass, Cloud, free online rumored, while PS6 emphasizes exclusives. Timed exclusives? Switch 2 has for Nintendo's friendly hits, but limited third-party ports. Now, Switch 2 has eternal exclusives. So VR, well, I'm not going to focus too much on that one. Versus next, okay, so the challenges. Versus next Xbox, Steam Machine fares well as a budget alternative, cheaper, Linux optimized for indies. Well, we got to see if it's got to be tested out. They got so far with the Steam Deck. They can go farther with the Steam Machine. This is going to be hard for them, okay? Because the Steam Deck succeeded the old Steam Machine. Now it's time for the Steam Machine to succeed the Steam Deck. Game Pass could dominate. So that's good. If Xbox launches at $700 in late 2026, Steam early entry gives it a head start. Okay, 510. So it's the Xbox and Phil Spencer's negative attitude isn't going to help. Versus the PS6, moderate success. The delay lets the PS6's delay lets Steam capture living room share, but Sony's exclusives, which are timed, remember. Spider-Man 2 you can play on the Steam Machine. You could play Spider-Man 2 on the Steam Machine. You could play games from 5 years ago or 3 years ago that were PS5 exclusives on the Steam Machine and Steam Deck. Okay? God of War. What are you talking about? But Sony's exclusive God of War. Yeah, you could play that on the Steam Deck, on the Steam Machine. And PSSR's upscaling will pull premium gamers. Steam's open ecosystem appeals to PC crossovers. I mean, it's the performance that matters. Will PS6's performance with those games matter more than what Steam is doing with Valve? PS6's polish could limit it to 20 to 30% of Sony's install base. Versus Switch 2. Yeah, better success. Edge is out with the power in the library. Versus other PCs. Niche strength. Steam Machine is an easy PC for couch. Yeah. So if you're not a PC build, if you are a PC builder, if you build PCs for a living, just keep on keeping on. just keep on doing your PCs. You don't need, and don't even like, just tune out. Just watch some OnlyFans videos right now, right now. But if you are not a PC builder and you're like, okay, I want an easy PC, this is what you got. Undercutting $1,500 per builds, 2020 trends. Yeah, I would fuck up. So overall outlook is lineup could capture 10 to 50% market share in 2026, 3 to 5 million units combined, thriving among PC loyalists and budget gamers via affordability. At Steam's 120 million users, it won't dominate consoles. Xbox PS6's power, exclusives, and Switch 2's portability ensure fragmentation, but it'll pressure them on value, forcing better optimization. Now, if we're also talking about cartridges and discs, let me have my final thoughts. I'm seeing a lot of game key card things going on. I forget which of the latest Switch 2 games has a game key card. Is it Monster Hunter Stories or is it some other thing? Okay. Um, and I'm seeing, PlayStation's still going to have disc options. I think Xbox will still have disc options. So if you don't mind collecting discs, if you prefer to collect discs, you're better off with Microsoft, or no, you're better off with Sony. But Sony has had a lackluster state of play yesterday, as of this recording in November of 2025, and now you're left with either getting game key cards from your Switch or having Sony peripheral memory stick cards for your PS5 and 6, or getting a universal micro SD cards to stick into your Steam Deck, your Steam machine. What would you rather fucking do? Isn't it fucking obvious? Okay? Isn't it obvious? This from an article from Polygon from a few hours ago. After years of slow building hardware success thanks to the Steam Deck, Valve is finally ready to take on the home console space in earnest. The freshly announced Steam Machine revives a once failed experiment with a promising new lease on life. The GameCube like console will seamlessly bring your PC gaming library to a TV by way of SteamOS. It's a moment that PC gamers have waited for a long time for Valve to finally pull up. It looks like the moment is upon us. And that might just be the nail in the coffin for Xbox. If the Steam Machine can actually deliver on its impressive specs, we may be on the verge of a shift in the big three console structure that we have not seen since the Dreamcast days. Valve's Cube could be poised to make Xbox redundant as a home console, expediting Microsoft's long-brewing pivot into a more service-driven gaming company centered around Game Pass as its primary product. It doesn't necessarily spell the end of Xbox as a brand, much like Sega didn't disappear when it lowered out of the hardware market. But it does draw renewed attention to years of strategy from Microsoft that is now in danger of backfiring. So, some people just could buy board games. I had some problems with my Nintendo Wii working right. My GameCube is dead. It doesn't work. My N64 is dead. Very few of my Nintendo consoles work anymore. Okay? And that's the sad truth. Look at this stuff. This is what we're looking at. This is the future right now. This is the future for the late 20s, early 30s. Okay? We're in the 2020s. The 2030s will show us what this is all about. Looks like an Xbox. It looks like an ooh-yah. Right? Isn't that what Rich Review Tech said? Ooh yeah. So that's the face of it. It has changed again from the old days of board games to pinball to video game arcade to home video game to Atari versus Nintendo to Nintendo versus Sega and then versus PlayStation and then then Sega drops out. Here comes the Xbox. Here we are. This is it. Or most kids would be playing Roblox anyway. They don't care where the game comes from. There's your Xbox. Remember when it was like the original Xbox with that green button and the X-shaped box? You couldn't mistake that for anything else. And with that, I'm signing off. Have a nice one. Have a great one. Long live the Steam Deck. Long live the Gabe Cube.